it has to be David Haye, because I've been his coach since he was 16 up until the age of 30, whatever. So if I don't pick him now, it will just look like I'm being bitter. He is very, very heavy-handed, and we don't know how much fight he has in him. And he won't know until he actually gets tested, especially with his injuries. If you are putting smart money on it, you'd have to pick David to win early. But if Tony can cope with that heavy-handedness and drag him into a fight after the mid-stage, Tony is battle-hardened over the past few years, whereas David has probably become battle-softened, and the second half could expose that. It's definitely a fight of David Haye's heavy-handedness and sharpshooting style, getting to grips with it early and winning, or can Bellew withstand that assault? What is going to get slung on him and drag it into a dogfight in the second half? Those are the words of Adam Booth, the former trainer of David Haye. Now, I was having a debate with somebody online the other day, and he was adamant that David Haye is feeling immense pressure in this fight and that he's somehow wilting or cracking under the pressure. I couldn't disagree strongly enough, more strongly than that particular viewpoint. David Haye doesn't feel hardly any pressure going into this fight. And even if he did feel pressure, David Haye is somebody who actually likes pressure. He's one of those fighters who likes to put pressure on himself and say he's going to do, all types of spectacular stuff to his opposition. David Haye actually likes pressure. He's a fighter who thrives on the energy of pressure. The energy of the big occasion. That's what he's all about. And here against Tony Bellew, far from him cracking under pressure, he picked Tony Bellew as an easy fight. This is a cherry pick for David Haye. You don't cherry pick somebody and then all of a sudden say, oh God, actually, I'm feeling terrible pressure here. No. David Haye sees this as an easy fight, just like he saw Enzo Macronelli as an easy fight, just like he saw Derek Chisora as an easy fight, and many other fights out there. He's talking just the same in the lead up to this fight as he was when he fought Macronelli, when he fought Chisora, so on and so forth. He's been in volatile situations before with his opponent. He's been in pressure situations before. None of that kind of stuff is going to affect David Haye. He's way too experienced for all that. The pressure is not going to bother him. What might bother him, and if there is an upset here, are the factors that Adam Booth outlined in the quote that I just gave you of him. David Haye's ring rust or potential ring rust, his injuries, his age. These things could affect him. Tony Bellew has been far more active than David Haye over the past 5 years, and Tony Bellew has been fighting real quality opponents. David Haye hasn't. He hasn't fought anybody with a pulse since Derek Chisora. I think that was back in 2012, was it? Correct me if I'm wrong. So we're talking 5 years since David Haye fought anybody with a pulse. So as Adam Booth said there, he might be able to be sharp early on, but in the latter stages of the fight, could that, lack of battle-hardedness, if that's even a proper term, be exposed? Booth knows David Haye very well, better than anybody as a fighter. So if he is open to the possibility of David Haye gassing out, basically, maybe breaking down in the second half of the fight, if he's open to the possibility of Tony Bellew coming on strong late, if he can survive the early onslaught, then I've got no idea why anybody else wouldn't also be open to that possibility. Because none of you guys, nor me, know David Haye better than Adam Booth does. So this is something I've spoke about in previous videos. There is no substitute for ring activity. And you've been out, no real opponents for 5 years. This is his first real opponent. So he could blitz Tony Bellew out there early. But if he don't, there's a chance that Tony Bellew could come on strong and make it very difficult for David Haye, or dare I say it, maybe even pull off the upset. I'm still going for David Haye to win, definitely. But as I've said in previous videos about this fight, the upset is not that far-fetched at all when you consider all these different factors. Yeah. Him being out the ring for so long with injuries, no proper opponents. And David Haye never had good stamina in his prime. See, you can't expect his stamina to be better now than it was when he was 30 or, 28. It's not going to be better. It's going to be worse. So can Tony Bellew expose that in the second half of the fight? Maybe he can. And just to reiterate, the pressure ain't going to get to David Haye at all. If anything, he might not feel enough pressure in this fight. He might think this fight is too easy. Complacency is something that might actually get to David Haye. I'm not talking about physical complacency in terms of not turning up in shape. No, he's going to turn up in shape. He's vain like that. He loves being in shape aesthetically. I'm talking about complacency in terms of mentally, because you have to be mentally ready for a tough fight in order to actually come through a tough fight. More often than not, you have to be mentally prepared and tell yourself this is going to be hell. And so when you get in the ring, it's not a shock to your system. But if you go in the ring thinking this is going to be easy and it turns out to be hell, then it will be a shock to your system. And that's when you can unravel mentally in a fight. So with David Haye being so nonchalant about Bellew, maybe that could backfire on him. Maybe his lack of respect for Bellew and the fact that he thinks this is easy and one-sided and a mismatch. And he really believes this. This is how David Haye is. As I said before, after the Chisora fight, he said before the Chisora fight, he thought he'd bowl Chisora over in a couple of rounds and it wasn't really a competitive fight. After the fight, he reiterated, he said, you know what, I was surprised. I thought I was going to bowl Chisora over in a couple of rounds, and he was actually tougher than I expected. And in that 5th round, when David Haye did knock out Derek Chisora, many people, including myself, felt as though David Haye was starting to gas out. I thought he was showing visible signs of being knackered. And Chisora was coming on stronger. Not to take anything away from the KO punch, it was a terrific left hand, which initially dropped Chisora. And so David Haye won fair and square. But I think it does show that even then, back in 2012, his stamina wasn't the greatest, in my view. So anyway, let me stop waffling. Let me know how you feel about everything I talked about in this video. Adam Booth, what he had to say about the fight, so on and so forth. Give me your breakdown in the comment section below. All right, it's happening. I'm out.